Call of Juarez, the Cartel received negative reviews from both reviewers and players. If you look at Metacritic, on PC it has 51 out of 100, on 360, 47 out of 100, on PS3, 45 out of 100. Edge scored the game a 4 out of 10, saying, FPS games, like action movies, can be sublime or ridiculous. This is aiming for the former, and often proves to be the latter. Responding to the negative reviews, the CEO of Techland, the developer behind Call of Juarez, said that the game was a mistake, and he added that the game is not bad, it was just not ready when it was launched. How did Call of Juarez go from Bound in Blood to the Cartel? What happened? Hey everyone, Jarek the Gaming Dragon here. If you're already subscribed and you haven't clicked that bell, be sure to do that, otherwise YouTube won't tell you that I posted anything. If you haven't subscribed, well, watch this video and maybe consider subscribing if you like it. My preferred platform of choice is PC, and this already posed a little bit of a problem. You see, Call of Juarez was originally published by Ubisoft, but their publishing rights ran out, and Techland wanted those rights, so they gained the rights to the Call of Juarez franchise. But they never picked up the Cartel, which is rather telling. This game was so bad that they let it be abandonware. They prefer that you forget about this game, and that's completely fair. But now I have a problem. I can't buy it on Steam, I can't buy it on Uplay, you can't find used copies because all the PC releases were just a Steam code. So that really only leaves me with one option. Go torrent the game, which I tried. But as it seems, the crack that was originally made for the Cartel was for an old version of Uplay, and doesn't work anymore. So you can't even pirate this game. So I did what any self-respecting gamer would do. I turned to G2A. As a disclaimer, I don't endorse buying things from G2A. They oftentimes steal keys and this really hurts developers, but I had no choice here. I found the Cartel for around $250 on G2A. I went ahead and bought it to see what I'd get. What I got was the serial key saying something like img_052.png, obviously a picture, not the CD key. A few minutes later I noticed it said show picture, I clicked it and it was literally just a picture of someone's Steam CD key. I can only imagine how long this was sitting on G2A. But whatever. I typed in the CD key to my Steam and hey, it works, so now I got this game on my Steam library. Joy. An interesting note is that this game still does require Uplay, but you don't seem to get any Uplay achievements. It just uses Uplay as an extra DRM step. I don't know why the achievements on Uplay don't work anymore, but they do work on Steam, and this game gives you a lot of achievements. Anyway, this was telling. This game was not easy to get, and the game doesn't get any better from here. Upon launching the game, I immediately noticed it was not a good console to PC port. You have virtually no video settings. All you can do is change your resolution, the texture quality, full screen or windowed, foliage quality, and your refresh rate. You don't have any of the standard PC settings. No anti-aliasing, no anisotropic filtering, no vertical sync, nothing. So if you want to work in any of that, you're going to have to do it through an external source, like the NVIDIA control panel, which I did, so this game actually looks a little bit smoother in this video than what you'll usually see. Thankfully this game was stable and didn't crash on me, so at least it's got that going for it. However, this meant you have to do workarounds to change things that you can't change in the NVIDIA control panel. For example, the FOV, which takes way too many steps to change. You go to where the game is installed, you find a folder called MD, you find data0.pack, you open that up with 7-zip or WinRAR, whatever you use, you go into the skills folder and there you extract default_levels.xml, then you go into your user profile, documents Call of Juarez the Cartel/out. In that folder, you create a folder called data. In that data folder, you create another folder called skills. Now you move default_levels.xml into that folder. You open default_levels.xml in Notepad, and then you find the corresponding FOV line there. It's going to be vertical default 50, which equates to about 78. That's not enough for me. I put it to around 97 in-game, and it didn't seem to break anything aside from the animation of answering your phone, which only caused some minor clipping, so I don't know why I couldn't have just changed my FOV. Or at least allow me to change it in an INI file. Why do I have to do all these extra steps? I can't imagine the coding they did in this game to make it work. But at least I can change it. There are a few things in this game that you can't change that are must-haves. For example, you can't turn off motion blur. Now if you play on console, this may not sound like a big deal to you, however motion blur is designed to kind of cover up lower frame rates, and the console version of this game only runs at 30 FPS, so it makes sense there. But on PC, when you're running at 60 FPS or higher, you don't need motion blur, it just kind of gets in the way and doesn't look good. So most PC players prefer to turn this off. Well, can't do that here. But a bigger problem is the fact that this game has mouse acceleration by default with no way to turn it off, not even in the files. And that is abysmal. Mouse acceleration is not liked by anyone, and it's expected that you shouldn't have it in your game, and if you do, there should be an option to turn it off. If you don't use a mouse, let me explain. Mouse acceleration is designed so that if you move your mouse a certain speed, it kind of tries to speed it up. Like say if you're dragging your mouse across the screen, it makes it so you don't have to drag your mouse quite as far. For just doing idle things on the desktop, this isn't really that bad. But when you want your aim to be precise in the same thing every single time, mouse acceleration is a terrible thing. This means if someone's standing 90 degrees to your left and you want to quickly turn to your left and shoot them, every time your crosshair is going to end up somewhere different. Yeah, there's a reason PC gamers always turn this off, and we can't do that here. So console players right now are probably feeling pretty smug. However, the console versions are even worse. Aiming with a controller feels absolutely abysmal, even worse than aiming with a mouse with mouse acceleration. To make matters worse, this game does not look good on consoles in any way whatsoever. You have the usual problems of the last generation. Running at 720p maximum, so you have a low resolution stretched up, making these big jaggy lines around everything with no anti-aliasing. And 30 FPS. If you play on PS3 it's even worse, it regularly doesn't reach 30 FPS. On PC you can at least brute force it to run smoothly and at whatever resolution you want. But no matter what platform you're playing on, you're choosing the most playable option out of 3 awful options. And the most playable option requires a few workarounds to make it more playable. There really is no winning with this game, and I haven't even gotten to the game itself. Alright, well let's continue with the graphics. They honestly don't look awful. They don't look great for 2011, but you know, they could be worse. The thing I noticed immediately about this game though wasn't necessarily the graphics behind the game, but instead the entire lack of atmosphere, which is strange. Bound in Blood was crafted with such love and care. Every single Old West town you went to felt like it was lived in. Houses had appropriate props that felt lived in. People walking around felt like actual residents of these old western towns. There was a general vibe and atmosphere to every location you visited that is completely absent in the Cartel. These new locations almost feel like a parody, like this is what someone saw one time in some old 80s movie about the slums of LA and let's just recreate that. Combine the lack of detail and all the technical problems and you have a game that manages to look worse than Bound in Blood, which came out 2 years before. Bound in Blood was pleasurable to look at. The Cartel is not pleasurable to look at.
So I'm trying to work towards that and eventually maybe reach that. What the heck? What kind of dancing are you doing? This is not dancing. This is the worst animations. Look at this guy. What are you doing? How is this a dance? This is some top tier work. And this guy's doing the same one. It's even better view over here.
Where are you going?
What a jerk.
Just keep dancing over there.
Oh, pendejo.
These are just a bunch of clones all dancing, quote unquote dancing. Oh my god, look, it's even worse! Holy shit! Oh my god.
The story doesn't fare any better. Now, first of all, let's just mention how this game has absolutely nothing to do with the previous Call of Juarez games. They wanted to take this game to a modern day, and I figured, well, they're probably gonna make a modern day Western then, right? Well, no, this just feels like any modern shooter. The only connection this game has from the previous games is that one of the characters is a descendant of Ray McCall. At least, I can assume. He kind of looks like him, his last name is McCall. I guess they're connected? Unfortunately, he lacks any sort of the character or likability of Ray McCall. In fact, no one is likable in this game. The story as a whole just doesn't really make any sense and is very hard to follow. This is a CBS crime flick. You have the option to choose between 3 characters, Eddie, Ben McCall, and a female character that I don't even remember the name of even though I just played the game. I could go look up her name real quick, but I wanted to drive home the point that these characters are not likable or memorable. Anyway, Ben McCall is a Vietnam veteran. He fought in Vietnam along with a few other people that this game mentions a lot, but doesn't really go into extreme detail. All you know is that something happened in Vietnam that was controversial, and they don't tell you much more. You just know that Ben McCall has issues with other people he fought with in Vietnam. This game does a horrible sin when it comes to storytelling. It tells you everything and shows you nothing. Why is this guy the bad guy? Show me why he should be so bad. Don't just tell me, oh, he's the head of this cartel, or oh, he did something in Vietnam. That doesn't mean anything to me. In fact, it means so little to me that throughout the story in this game, they will name drop people a lot, and you're just sitting there thinking, am I supposed to remember who this is? Who is this person? Why is he important to the plot? What's going on? Anyway, you have the choice to play as one of these 3 characters. Unlike the previous games, you can't swap between them between levels. This is a little bit of a downer, but the reason for that is that this game has built-in co-op. Co-op that isn't accessible now because the online servers are shut down because this game is abandonware. Built-in co-op is a cool thing though, so I don't know, maybe it'd make this game a little less boring. I do get what they were going here for when it comes to the story. It involves the Mexican cartels. Now, this game was made in 2011, and that's right around the time all these Mexican cartels were getting a lot of media coverage. Now, they're still a very big problem today, but the media doesn't seem to be covering them as near as much. So the story is still relevant, and there's a lot you can do here. The Mexican cartels are becoming so much of a problem that the US and Mexico are close to going to war, which is something that will never happen. Regardless, these three characters have become part of a special task force designed to try to take these cartels down. These characters are from the FBI, the DEA, and the LAPD respectively. It is interesting to see these three come together and try to collaborate, but they dislike each other so much that they all become annoying and unlikable very quickly. There's always bickering with nothing more. There's no character development, nothing. Just unlikable, obnoxious, rude characters that are cliche stereotypes the whole way through. I can see interesting ideas, like they all kind of have their bad cop vibe and they're trying to do things behind each other's backs. For example, Eddie has a gambling problem and is in debt. So what he's trying to do during every mission is secretly pick up drugs that he can sell later. You can't be standing in the line of sight of your friendly AI. Otherwise, they'll kind of slap you on the wrist and you won't get any of the experience you would have gotten from picking that up. They have their own hidden agendas, so they're called. And these are story elements that you won't actually get unless you play as those characters. So to hear everything in the game, you're gonna have to play it 3 times. And I feel sorry for anyone who did that. This is more interesting in co-op because this effectively means you're hiding from another human player that's trying to watch you pick up items that you're not supposed to pick up. But realistically, what's probably going to happen is you're probably going to tell them, hey, can you look away for a moment so I can get this experience so I can get a better gun? Because this is how you unlock guns in the game. Either way, the idea is nice, but the execution is so poorly performed that you don't care about the story, you don't know what's going on, and you don't like these characters. It's an extremely poorly written and poorly executed crime drama that reminds me more of like a superfan's idea of a modern day Call of Juarez. Maybe he just really liked Ray McCall and tried to make a badass modern day Ray McCall, but holy hell, this ended poorly. I don't know how you managed to go from the writing that you saw in Bound in Blood with lovable characters and tons of passion put into the game to this. This feels like a first draft of sorts, both in the writing and in the production value. I mean, listen to this cutscene.
Certain elements in Washington are pushing for a military intervention into Mexico, and much of the public is behind them on this. But the Mexican government claims that such an action would be tantamount to a declaration of war. So the president is between a rock and a hard place here. He doesn't want war with Mexico.
At the beginning of this cutscene, I thought they were watching TV, but no, that's the actual audio quality of this cutscene, and it's consistent throughout the entire game. If they're talking inside, it sounds like this. I don't know who did the audio in this game, but it doesn't sound like this when you're talking indoors, not unless you're talking in a very big, empty room with no furniture. Even then, it doesn't sound like this. You could argue I'm nitpicking here, but I don't know, that's pretty in my face. Well, I'll give you a more important thing to laugh at. Anytime this game tried to throw a serious twist at you, it didn't come across as a serious twist in the story, instead it came across as a hilarious blunder.
On your knees, motherfucker.
I don't know, I'm waiting for the bomb.
This is where you start talking and you tell me who you have inside the fucking Justice Department. You do realize if you don't talk, I have no reason to keep you alive.
You killed my son, gringo!
You want to join him?
Kill me, don't kill me! Either way, you're all fucking dead!
Everyone dies eventually, Juan. But there's good ways to die and bad ways. Like when someone shoots out your kneecaps and leaves you out in the desert to fry. Those vultures, they don't even wait for you to die before they rip out your guts and chow down on them right in front of you. Look up at the sky, Juan.
Chingada madre!
Get to cover!
What the fuck? Well, I wasn't really wrong when I said the bomb thing, but what?
How in the world am I supposed to take something like that seriously? I can tell you everything that happened in Bound in Blood, and I may have complaints about the game, but it's going to be memorable, and I'm still going to remember that game 5 years from now. This game, I'm going to forget next week. The same thing applies to the gameplay. It is so mediocre, boring, and unoriginal. Have you played a first-person shooter before? You played this game. Congratulations. Bound in Blood did have obvious inspirations. It was a spaghetti western, and at times it kind of seemed cliche, but the stereotypes had their own personality to them. They had their own characters, and they broke out of those cliches very often. This is why I liked the game so much. Despite the fact that it had a very clear vision, it still was unique enough to be its own thing. This is why I'm one of those guys that really likes the older Fire Emblem games and doesn't like Fire Emblem Awakening and on. Yeah, Fire Emblem 6, Roy's game up until Ike's games may have still had very clear anime inspirations, but cliches in that game frequently broke out to have their own personality. That doesn't happen from Awakening and on. Fire Emblem just became your generic anime thing you've seen everywhere else, and it sort of lost that Fire Emblem identity. I haven't played the Switch one, so I can't speak on that. I don't own a Switch, but purely talking about Awakening and Fates here. Awakening and Fates were at least polished games though, and that's not what I can say about the Cartel. This is just a boring, mediocre shooter that you've played before. In Bound in Blood, when you chose between Ray and Thomas, they had distinct playstyles that were very different. That's not true about the Cartel. Ben is supposed to be stronger at dual-wielding and up-close combat. The woman whose name eludes me is supposed to be the longer-range sniper. And Eddie is supposed to be medium range, SMGs, stuff like that. This means they're supposed to have weapons that they're better with, but in all reality they all play almost exactly the same. They all use the same guns, and you've used these many times before, and you've shot these enemies many times before. You will be fighting the same generic enemy the entire game, with nothing to spice things up. In fact, let's talk about these guns. Like I said, the way you unlock them is by getting experience by doing your secret or agenda things without your teammates seeing you, so that's how you do that. The animations are okay. A few things might be incorrect here and there, like how the FAL has a reciprocating charging handle, which it actually does not. But for the most part, they're smooth enough. Every gun in this game is underwhelming. They all sound like pea shooters, there's a lack of screen shake when you shoot them, none of them feel punchy or really that enjoyable. They just feel like your mediocre budget shooter title. But to make things worse, most of these guns feel identical. All the semi-auto pistols just feel the same, most of the revolvers feel the same, every shotgun feels the same. The shotguns are the worst when it comes to this. They all have their different stats, but I can shart farther than their effective range for all of them, and they all feel like their effective range is the same exact thing. And the rate of fire is the same thing. Their animations are the same. Every shotgun in this game is a pump-action shotgun with the same animations, including the Benelli M4. Why did you model a semi-automatic shotgun and make it pump-action? It doesn't even have a pump! While we're on the topic of shotguns, the cover of this game has Ben McCall holding a double barrel. There is no double barrel in this game, only pump actions, which is rather weird considering this was coming over from an old western, so you think at least they would carry that over. For most of the game, I was just dual-wielding Scorpions or Uzis because they were the most effective, and having some sort of assault rifle as my primary. I do like how this game has the Mexican FX-05. You don't see that gun in other games. It may look like a G36, but it's a totally different gun. But that's really the only good thing I can say about the gunplay in this game. It's amazingly mediocre, very repetitive, and very boring. Also, let's talk about the sniper rifles. There's only two in the game, the SVD and the M24. You unlock the SVD way before the M24. It's completely accurate, semi-automatic, 5 in the mag, and will kill anything in one shot. Meanwhile, the M24 is the last gun in the game that you unlock. It does the same damage as the SVD, making it completely pointless. You have a semi-automatic sniper rifle that does the same damage, has the same accuracy, and reloads faster, so why would you ever use a bolt action? But to make matters worse with the M24, you only load one bullet in at a time. Why? That's not technically incorrect, you could do this, but you have a 5-round internal mag. Why would you only put one bullet in at a time if you're expecting more enemies? The M24 really is just a pointless gun. And as I said, you're just kind of going to find the best guns in the game and use nothing else. You'll find yourself getting into a routine of just shooting the same guy over and over again, and then getting into a car to do a dumb chase sequence over and over again. To make matters worse with the car thing, it was designed with co-op in mind. If you don't have friendly human players, you will always be driving. You can't shoot while you're driving, not even with a pistol. So you're going to be spending most of these driving sections with your screen being covered in red because everyone is shooting at you from every angle. You never seem to die, but it's really annoying nonetheless. If you had human co-op partners, they'd be able to lean out of the car and shoot back, or maybe you could do that if you didn't want to drive, but if it's just you, you have no choice. Your friendly AI is useless in this regard and just seem to sit there doing nothing. The cars aren't very fun to drive either. You can't drift them around, they seem to lack any sort of car-based physics. They're just stock cars. The last mechanic I can talk about when it comes to the gameplay is the concentration mode. You might think, hey, we finally got something cool, but no, it's just a standard bullet time mechanic. In the last game, you did have something cool with the concentration mode, but not this time. Oh, and of course you're going to be doing the slow motion Call of Duty breaching through a door thing over and over again. This game will only last you 6.5 hours, but it's going to feel like so much longer because you end up doing the same motions so many times. This is a bad game. But it's a bad game in a way that's just sort of difficult to get angry at, because it's not a frustrating game, it's just a boring, mediocre one. And that's the worst kind of bad game, because it's not even interesting to look at or hear about. In fact, I only think this got so much attention because it came from a game that was actually good, with Bound in Blood. People loved the spaghetti western theme, they liked that game, they wanted more Call of Juarez, and then they got this. If not for this, it would have been a very forgotten game that no one looked at. In fact, this game reminds me a lot of Soldier of Fortune Payback, which no one would have heard of if it didn't have the Soldier of Fortune name. Now that I think about it, if you tried to pass the Cartel off as a Cauldron game, people would believe you. I think we're onto something. I think they actually just outsourced this to Cauldron. Really though, I played a lot worse than this. I played a lot better than this, that's for sure, but I've definitely played worse. In fact, there's only one mechanic I can really rant about as being super annoying, and that's the knockdown mechanics. It doesn't matter what game I'm playing, I hate it when games do this. Getting knocked over in a first-person shooter is the equivalent of getting stun locked. I will always hate it no matter what shooter I'm playing. But it's even worse in this game because you lay on the ground for a good 5 seconds looking around doing nothing before standing back up. And there's nothing you can do to speed this process up. Thankfully, the enemies seem too stupid to shoot you while you're on the ground, with the exception of one helicopter fight.
Oh my fucking god. Somebody please, like, bookmark something here, because this is just annoying. This mechanic is the worst mechanic. What? Stop! Jesus Christ! I cannot do anything! Okay, let me hide over here. It still knocks me over. And you can't do anything while you're knocked over. It's basically the same thing as getting stun locked. That is fucking bullshit.
Yeah, fuck this. This was the only time I got really annoyed while playing this game. It was made even worse by the fact that there's not any cover in this area, so you're just standing in the open getting stun locked over and over again from a helicopter. And unlike the other enemies, the helicopter is going to laser focus on you, and you are going to die if you get knocked over. Or at least you'll stand up and immediately get knocked over again without being able to do anything. If the whole game was like this, I would say it's one of the worst shooters I've ever played. But since it's mostly just a mediocre, boring, repetitive, redundant shooter, that's all it really is. I really do want to call this game The Cartel Payback because it does feel like Soldier of Fortune Payback. But that's all I really have to talk about with this game. It will all be worth it because I'm going to be playing Call of Juarez Gunslinger next. Everyone seems to tell me this is a very good game. I've never played it, so let's see how it goes. If you want to come join me while I stream that game, my Twitch is twitch.tv/Jarek4GamingDragon. All my subscribers on Twitch get to see my videos one day ahead of time. Same thing goes for my patrons over on Patreon. You can click the link in the bottom right on this end card if you want to check that out. If you want to see some of my other videos, click them around on the screen here. Thank all of you guys for watching, and I will see you next time.